Namaskar, then let's start. Is 2-1 on my clock here to 2. I would like
Boa
to welcome
tarde,
all
nós vamos
this morning
iniciar então
to
os nossos
this
trabalhos.
series of courses which are being organized by a movement called Amandla
Nós estamos
Samaj
organizando uma
Africa.
série de cursos,
What
uma
is Amandla? Amandla is a
atividade de
movement
curso
which is based on
voltados para
strength, wisdom,
estudos da região da
and
África.
collective
Esse
working
grupo chamado de
in the
Samaj
community to resolve the problems. That is the masses being protagonists of the solutions of the
Então,
issues
a gente vai
that we
apresentar
face in the
uma
community.
quantidade
It
de
is
soluções para essa
getting the
região.
support of Proud Brazil and Proud USA
Esse evento é
and
patrocinado,
many other
apoiado
members in
pelo
Europe
Braut
are
Brasil.
also supporting. In Africa, a good number of people are supporting. So you are all most
Temos
welcome.
também
We
apoios
have
na região da África.
28 classes. This today is the 5th.
A gente
My
vai ter
dearest professor,
todo
Kathleen
28
Benson.
reuniões
She has
com essa
30 years of
temática.
teaching for 40 years. That is not my part to say, but just
Essa
I led to Guruvati to introduce her huge curriculum.
Guru
And
vai
as
apresentar
far as I
a
know, she's one of the
frase
best teachers
grande
of Neohumanist education. So we take advantage of her
que
presence
tem
to ask
estudos na área de
questions,
humanas.
go deep into the subject. Amandla Samaj Afrique is having many other projects. One is this course of
Samaj
how
tem
there are courses on
quantidade grande de
soon
projetos.
they'll start many sensibilization programs on YouTube.
Além
They have
disso,
some projects,
alguns
there are
programas de
some projects
sensibilização que estão
begun
disponíveis no YouTube,
of supporting developmental activities in different
apoiando
places of Africa.
diversas
So it is
atividades.
actually open to everyone, whoever want to cooperate,
E
whoever want
ela
to
está
contribute,
aberta para
is most
todos, para quem
welcome.
tem interesse em
So I let
participar.
now to Guruvati to present
Então, a
our
gente vai
professor.
agora para a Guruvati
And
para ela fazer a apresentação.
she's my teacher of Neohumanist education. So it is something very emotional on my end to have her here as a teacher for this course.
Então, é uma emoção muito
I
grande estar
believe
aqui,
you
porque
appreciate
ela
and get to know
foi
this great
uma das minhas
personality
professoras.
that is hidden in the hinterland of the USA. Namaskar.
E ela está sediada nos Estados Unidos. Namaskar.
Namaskar, everybody. We are pleased to welcome tonight Kathleen Kesson, who is a
Então, boa
professor
tarde a
in
todos. A
religion
gente dá
teaching,
boas-vindas à
writing and
palestrante
leadership at the
Kathleen Kessler,
School of Education at Long Island University, Brooklyn. She is the former
com
director
estudos na
of
região do
education
Brooklyn, nos
at
Estados
Woodland
Unidos.
College and was the founding director of the John Dewey Project on Progressive Education at the University of Vermont, a research and
De
policy
projetos da Universidade.
organization. She has published numerous books and articles on democracy and education, arts and
Publicou diversos
education,
artigos
critical theory,
livros relacionados à
critical theory,
temática
and
de
spirituality and education.
pública e
Her
humanas.
first academic paper on neo-humanist education was published in 1988, and she has
Publicações
continued to
na área de
substantially write
humanismo.
on the topic since then. She is currently a global affiliate with the Gund Institute for Environment at the University of Vermont and is a contributing member of the Great Transition Initiative, a project of the TELUS Institute at
Associações
Harvard University.
nacionais.
The floor is yours.
Então, o microfone é da senhora Kathleen.
Well, thank you for that introduction.
Muito obrigada pela
I'm
introdução.
not quite sure who knows what and what kind of expertise we have in the group. I'm assuming there's quite a bit. I
Tenho
will
muita
tell you, I'm
segurança
not
de
an
saber
expert on Africa.
quais são os
My
conhecimentos
area
que vocês
is
relacionados a esse
neo-humanist education. So I apologize in advance if I am presenting some things you're already very familiar with, because I really wasn't quite sure what had gone before. I'm hoping we have some time at the end for some small group discussions.
Então, a gente tem pequeno grupo de
as sort of an
discussões.
opportunity for some community building. I thought I would start really looking at neo-humanism itself. I'm not quite sure how
A gente
familiar
vai
everyone is with this.
ir
This is a
direto
quote
ao assunto sobre o
from
neohumanismo.
Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, who really developed the idea of
Então,
neo-humanism.
menciono aqui o
The book was published in
desenvolveu essa
1981, I
temática,
believe, for the first time, The Liberation of Intellect. And I'll just read
onde ele
a
inclui
quote
que
by
tudo está
Sarkar
relacionado à liberação
that
da
sort of
mente, do
defines
intelecto.
the scope of neo-humanism. He says that all molecules, atoms, electrons,
E conclui que todas
protons,
as moléculas, os
positrons,
átomos,
and
os
neutrons
galáxias,
are the
prótons,
veritable expressions of the same supreme
nêutrons
consciousness.
são
Those who
expressões
remember this reality,
da
who believe
mesma
this
consciência
realization
suprema.
ever alive in their hearts, are said to
Quem
have attained
lembra dessa
perfection in
realidade
life.
pode manter
They
a
are the real
realização
devotees,
da
the real
existência de
bhaktas. When the
todos os
underlying spirit of humanism is extended to
e a
everything,
perfeição da vida.
animate and inanimate,
Eles são
in this
realmente os
universe,
bons
I
e
have
realmente
designated this as
são chamados
neo-humanism.
de bhaktas ou bhaktis.
This
Então,
neo-humanism will elevate humanism
através
to
do
universalism, the
humanismo,
cult of love
é
for all
expandido
created
para
beings
tudo.
of this universe. So there's a
Então,
lot to
toda
unpack in this
manifestação
quote. I think the first thing to be aware of is this
deles
idea that there
tem
is a supreme
em si o
consciousness, a
neohumanismo.
creative force in the universe called by many religions God, or by
Considerando
any
a
number of words.
consciência suprema,
But this idea that we all come from the same source really suggests that
ou
we
seja,
are one
tudo veio
to
de uma
begin with,
mesma,
but we've
toda a
forgotten that.
criação, tudo
And so,
ser
of course, this
mente
world
veio de uma mesma consciência.
characterized by conflict.
Yes, Kathleen, if you can pause between sentences just for
All
the
right.
translators. Okay.
Shall do.
Yes.
This connection with all of
Essa
creation
não
is really what many people call love
criação
or agape. And so really it's
fez
a very
uma
simple concept, even though it's very complex. Is the expansion of love
bem
for all
complexa.
creation. So neo-humanism
Então, o
extends some of the basic ideas of humanism.
entende
And
na
we'll talk a bit about those later.
imagem da
First,
humanidade.
the current context.
A gente
How
tem
many
esse
of
contexto
you, if you could sort of signal, have heard this term, the Anthropocene? Is it something that's familiar to people?
eu
I
acho
don't
que
know. I
isso
don't see
era
many
o conceito de antropocentrismo.
pictures, so I'm not sure. I'll guess that some of you are familiar with it, and some aren't.
Sim,
But I
acho que
think
às
the Anthropocene is the reason for the urgency of promoting neo-humanism. We are creatures of a 10,000-year period called the Holocene,
então, nós somos
relatively stable
muitos
climate
anos
and the flourishing of human civilizations.
baseado em
And
civilizações.
we enjoy, at least many
Então,
people on the planet enjoy a fair amount of comfort,
então muitas pessoas no
some economic stability, but
eles
others do not.
a
Many
sustentabilidade
scientists tell us that we're now entering a new era, and because of the
porque
human impacts on the planet, the extraction of minerals, the fossil fuel
agora está entrando
usage,
numa era
excessive waste, pollution, that we're entering a new period of history, of
de lixo.
geological history. And they've named this the Anthropocene,
Tem
period of human
histórico
impact on the planet.
e lógica tema.
Most scientists tell us that we're in a period of great acceleration. All
De
these
alta
changes,
nível,
the
nós estamos no período de
geothermal,
maior
the
aceleração
biocentric, the ecological, and the atmospheric, are
do
bringing out
é voltado
changes in
para
the
o
system that threaten the very survival of life on the planet. Some scholars
algumas
more aptly
escolas ou
term this the
correntes
capital
filosóficas
plane.
defendem
And this
essa tese
recognizes that it's not all
plena
humans who are
capital,
responsible for the catastrophes that we face right
onde
now.
nós somos responsáveis
It's rather it's the economic paradigm, the
desde
consumption
nas esferas
patterns, and the
econômicas,
values of a very small number, a
são
small civilization
valores,
that has brought about these problems.
ou seja, nós somos o centro desse problema.
And the very visible consequences of this
E é visível,
flooding,
terríveis consequências.
tornadoes, fires,
Vocês podem ver as
weather changes. And I have a very
mudança
personal
climática,
story here. I live in Vermont,
né?
United States, which is a Methodist state. And it's always been promoted as a safe haven from climate change.
Então, isso é
A
uma
month ago,
resposta
many
da
of the
natureza
towns in
com
Vermont
relação
were
ao mundo
absolutely
climático.
destroyed, devastated by floods,
Tudo sendo
which were
destruído.
not expected.
Can you please go a little bit slowly for the translators? Thank you.
So I repeat, just in my personal life, my two
Então, eu
closest
repito,
friends
baseado na
were
minha própria
completely
experiência,
devastated by floods. And I know we have another sister living in Maui, and I know
a gente
Dada
tem,
Maheshwaran is on his way to
eu tenho
Maui
uma
right now,
pesquisa
where
em
the
Maui,
historic town of Lahaina has been destroyed by fire.
onde recentemente foi devastado devido ao
So I'm going to
incêndio.
take just a minute if you will use the chat and just say one or two
Pode
sentences
comentar também com
if
relação a
you or anyone you know
terremotos, né?
has been affected recently by climate change or by environmental catastrophe. And
Então, a
let's
gente
just take
tem
a look
vários
at the
exemplos
chat
que
and
acontecem
see
atualmente de
how many
catástrofe.
people have something to post. I wish I understood more languages.
Tem que estender mais vários idiomas.
Is anyone posting? Hurricane, and where was the hurricane?
Então, furacão.
Puerto Rico.
Porto
We have
Rico.
another one forming off the coast of Mexico today,
A gente
north and
tem
central Vietnam.
de
Close
furacão
to the south
da
of
região
Brazil.
central, localizado ali na região do Porto Rico.
My family is from Palma, Canary Islands, and 2 years ago they woke up and the island was in ashes. So I think we're beginning to realize there are no safe havens. Everyone on the planet will be affected in some way. Storms blowing down forests with torrential rains in South Africa. Heat waves in Geneva, Switzerland. All the grass is yellow. I didn't know a Canary Island was on fire right now. Much of the Canadian forest is burning right now. So it's clear
Atualmente,
that we're in
agora,
a period
todo mundo está
of
sofrendo com as queimadas.
unprecedented catastrophe.
Então, é
Mass
impressionante.
extinctions. This is, the UN reports over 1 million plant and animal species at danger.
Além disso, a gente tem vários relatos, inclusive
The
relatórios,
microplastics in the ocean
onde informam
probably
que há
don't
várias
need to
taxas
remind you of all this,
de
but
animais no
it's
planeta.
ubiquitous and it threatens the health of all species, not just the ocean species,
Além
but
disso,
humans as well.
microplásticos estão no
So what does
oceano,
this have to do
acabando
with
com os
decolonization?
micro-organismos.
The modern story is being written in stone as we speak.
Então, a verdadeira
This
história fica na pedra do que a gente realmente fala.
should just be showing the slideshow here. if there are humans around in another 100 years or so, they will be able to read about what happened in the layers of geology, the carbon particles. So really, I think the ultimate assumption here is that all of us who have been born in the 20th century and later are really responsible for what's happening, and we have to figure out what
Então,
to do.
realmente, somos responsáveis pelo que
So,
está acontecendo no mundo.
the point is, I think
Então,
the global
a
environmental
descolonização
crisis cannot be solved or separated
não
from
pode
global
resolver
justice.
ou
And
estar
this is
separado.
really why we've linked decolonization and neo-humanism. It's very
Não, mas
clear that the domination of human beings and the domination of nature are very much connected and inseparable. And it's also
a
true
dominação que o ser humano tem sobre os humanos, sobre
the
a
damage
natureza, é
inflicted by the
responsável
environmental crisis
e
is
prejudica
on
o
people
curso
who live in
natural
countries
do
that have
planeta.
been colonized before. So what does neo-humanism have to say about justice?
Então, o que tem o
Read
neohumanismo
this,
sobre
or
a
I
justiça?
will actually read it also out loud.
Então,
The
eu vou
endeavor
ler
to
esse
advance
trecho.
toward the ultimate reality by forming a society free of all inequalities, with everyone of the human race moving in unison, is called Samaj Tattva, the
Então,
principle
a
of
gente
social
tem um termo
equality.
chamado
This is
Samaj
the central idea of neo-humanism.
que
We have
é a
to
ideia
reject
central
all
sobre o
political
neohumanismo.
ideas that are contrary to
São
this.
ideias
And we
práticas e
need to welcome those ideas that help human beings to be
podem
established
ajudar os
in it.
humanos.
So what happened under humanism?
Então, o que
Humanism
acontece nesse
is a
guarda-chuva
philosophy
do
that really
humanismo,
sort of in the Western world came about
a
during the
filosofia,
Enlightenment
do mundo,
and the Renaissance.
mundo
Under
antigo.
humanism, there was an effort
E
to
o indivíduo
transcend
humano
the
pegou uma
superstition
importância
of the medieval
em
world.
empenhar seus direitos.
So the individual took on new importance and
Então, na
gained
verdade,
rights.
o que é correto na ideia da filosofia é que o humano tem o direito
In
às
this
coisas.
process, some humans were considered
Entretanto,
inferior to others.
nesse processo, alguns
I think we all
seres
know
humanos
this,
são
and
considerados
not deserving
inferiores.
of these rights.
Ele não
Women,
deveria, ele não tem
people of
direito
color,
a esse
children, people with
benefício.
disabilities, and
Mulheres,
non-Europeans were considered
pessoas
inferior.
baseadas nas cores, crianças e pessoas com debilidade.
Certain cultural groups
E
believe
não
themselves
são
morally,
europeus.
intellectually,
Alguns
culturally, and
grupos culturais
technologically
acreditam que
superior.
eles mesmos, moralmente ou
And there
intelectualmente,
was this idea
culturalmente,
that they had a manifest
tecnicamente são
destiny to
superiores
conquer,
aos demais,
dominate, colonize,
porque eles conquistam,
enslave,
dominam,
and thus
colonizam,
civilize
escravizam e
less than human others.
civilizam os outros humanos.
Now, what happened was capitalism as an economic system
Também o que acontece é que o capitalismo,
evolved
o
with
capitalismo
colonialism.
é
They are
considerado
really inseparable.
um sistema
Of course, we've had the
em
sale of
altas
goods
peças,
and business and stuff before, but really
caracterizado
the
pela
development of
consolidação
capitalism came with
do bem
colonialism, and of course,
para certos
the
indivíduos e
underpinnings of
países, através da
Western
exploração e
economic
opressão,
superiority
pessoas que
were
foram
a
colonizadas ou
system of
conquistadas.
labor that exploited indentured servants and enslaved people. And this created the consolidation of wealth in individuals and in countries, and of course the exploitation and oppression
Criaram,
of the
né,
colonized.
unificaram, padronizaram a crença, né, que eles são superiores.
Again, I think this is not anything that any of you are unfamiliar with.
Novamente,
It's just
a
a reminder that
colonização,
colonization was violent in the
ela
United
vem
States,
acompanhada de
huge,
violência,
genocidal, as
genocida,
the colonizers tried to wipe out over
a
500
desapropriação,
tribes that had developed very
deslocamento,
high levels of
introdução de novas doenças,
civilization and politics. Over
a
500
distorção das
sovereign nations in the
economias
United States.
e a devastação de costumes
It was
locais,
characterized
idiomas e
by the
culturas.
dispossession of land, the introduction of disease, the disruption of local economies, and the devastation of local customs, language, and culture. This last point becomes very important in neo-humanism, as Sarkar
Então,
emphasized the valuing
o
of
que é
local
comentado
culture
aqui, isso
and
aqui é muito
language
importante
in
para a
our
gente
education,
entender o neohumanismo de Pierre Sarkar.
alongside the cultivation of this universal spirit. We
Por
can talk
outro
more about
lado,
that.
cultivar, né, o caráter universal.
Colonization was often accomplished by missionary religious conversion
E também ele vem, às vezes,
dogma
acompanhado
to
de
control the mentality of the
conversão,
colonizer.
né, de
Sarkar has a
religião
lot to
e a
say
imposição
about
de um
religious
dogma para controlar a
So it's also
mentalidade
very much
dos
part of
colonizados.
neo-humanism. This idea that religion
No caso do
is often
neohumanismo,
used to create superstition, to create inferiority complexes and false beliefs,
cria
and thus to control people.
superstições.
The other thing that happened at the same time to
Outra
create
coisa
this
também
sense of
acontece são
inferiority and
as
superiority was pseudoscience.
relacionadas à
And you
inferioridade
may
e
be familiar
superioridade,
with
que a gente pode chamar
some
de
of these
ciência
19th
pseudociência.
century studies in
Ela é usada
craniology,
para
studies ahead,
promover
comparative
ideias
anatomy,
de
chronology,
gênero e raça,
eugenics, all were pseudoscience, scientific
identidade de
ideas
gênero
that
e
were
raça. Por
propagated
exemplo,
to justify
um
racism and
estudo sobre
colonialism.
crânio, anatomia comparada.
So colonialism really dehumanizes the
Então,
targets
o
of
colonialismo
colonization and
humaniza,
justifies
né,
their brutal treatment.
a colonização e
But it also
justifica
harms the
o
colonizers.
tratamento violento e brutal.
And I can't remember, I know Sarkar says something about this, but I don't have a citation for it.
E
But
devido à violência dos
the
colonizadores,
colonizers,
resultam
end
numa degradação
it results
cultural
in
e
their
moral
moral
dos
and cultural
colonizados.
degradation. The form of
A
education
educação
prevalent across
oeste,
the
né,
planet today is
que não
really
inclui
Western
o
education.
Oriente,
And I've written pretty
tem
extensively
sido a
about
mais
this.
poderosa,
If you're interested in that,
é considerada
you
uma
can
força
contact me and I'll send you
colonizadora,
some
né,
things.
em
But it's one
relação à
of the most
história,
powerful
variando
colonizing forces in
ideologias
history.
dominantes do
And it
humanismo
has really spread
e a
the
cultura,
ideology
né,
of humanism and
do
Western culture across the
Ocidente
planet.
através do
So
planeta.
many of the things that we take for granted as essential to
Então, tudo
education
que
are
tem, né,
actually
como uma verdade
part of this
absoluta.
paradigm of colonizing education. It's just
Uma
why
educação
education is such an
colonizadora.
important thing to be thinking about it. So this is just a map of colonial Africa.
Então, esse é o mapa
Prior
que
to colonialism, you know,
a
I'm sure there's some
colonização,
experts on this
da colonização
meeting
na
that know a
África.
lot more than I did, but this was what it looked like when it was colonized. Large
Isso é o que parece quando foi colonizado, né?
the resources by
Com relação
France,
aos
by
recursos,
Britain,
pelos
a little
pelos
bit by
franceses,
Germany,
britânicos,
Italy, Spain, Portugal,
os
and
espanhóis, os
Belgium.
alemães,
So huge territories controlled by
belgas.
Northern Europe.
A maioria de muitos territórios são controlados por eles. Foram controlados e são
Are we
controlados por
doing
eles.
okay in terms of speed?
Sim, tá tudo bem com relação à velocidade?
All right. So, again, some of these terms may be familiar to a lot of you,
Então, alguns
and
termos
others
que
not.
devem
Some
também
of the terms
ser
that are
familiares a
used
vocês, a
by
gente tem que
people who write
considerar
about colonization,
a colonização
one
interna,
of them is
a dominação da
internal
cultura,
colonization, and this again connects with
trauma
Sartre's emphasis
transgeracional, o
on
privilégio, o
understanding
racismo,
how inferiority complexes and
o
superiority are
etnocentrismo,
propagated. So it's really quite a
supremacia
complex
branca,
thing, you know. I mean, a
indígenas,
country will use
indigenização,
its media, its
e o
education, its
conhecimento
churches. There's
tradicional
lots of ways that
ecológico.
myths of inferiority and superiority are propagated by a dominant culture. And by a dominant culture, this simply means that the
Então,
culture
há
of
uma
the
relação
colonizers and
entre
privilege,
inferioridade e
of course,
superioridade,
is an expression of that is used to identify people who benefit from being a part of the dominant culture.
somente uma parcela é beneficiada.
Transgenerational trauma is a kind of a new concept, although we've known about
Novo
it for quite some
conceito.
time. But it's this idea that people whose recent ancestors, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, were victims of enslavement or genocide or displacement or oppression of any kind, generations down the road experience the effects of this. And some scholars are even saying that it becomes part of the genetic code. And I don't know that much about it, but it's the way that this trauma influences contemporary feelings of anxiety, of
Trauma
anger, of fear,
influencia, né?
a
Essa
range of emotions,
mudança de
structured
geração
behavior.
e comportamento.
Racism is
O
defined
racismo
as it's kind of a formula. It's not just
basicamente é
discrimination,
uma
it's really
fórmula de
discrimination
uma maneira
of
de
power,
exterminação.
based on an assumption that one race is superior to another.
Ou seja, eles partem do princípio que uma
Ethnocentrism is the way in which
nação é
we
superior
tend
à
to
outra.
evaluate another culture based on the assumptions of our own cultural
Eles acreditam que a
background.
outra cultura
So
é
really part of
superior à outra
neohumanism
baseado na sua própria crença.
reflective, meditative, contemplative work is coming to understand our own biases and the way that all of us have been shaped by these cultural assumptions.
Então, quando a gente medita, quando a gente faz
White
uma
supremacy is pretty
reflexão,
self-explanatory. It's a racist
você
belief
consegue
that white people
observar
are
o
superior
quanto a
to
gente
people
é
of other races and should be dominant
influenciado,
over them.
né, por
This
essa,
can also refer to the kind of culture that's created, the white supremacy culture.
por essa supremacia
Settlers, this
branca
is a complicated one, are basically
sobre as
people
outras
who
nações.
moved into colonized territory. So I'm a settler in the United States because my great grandfather and grandparents from Northern and Southern Europe came here after the
Então,
genocide and displacement of the indigenous people.
eu posso comentar que meus
Indigenous meaning
avós, eles vieram,
it's a term that
né,
has many
brancos
different terms.
nessa região devido
It could be Aboriginal, Native. It's basically people who originated in a particular place or were native to a location or the living
a
descendants of
diferença,
these
né, de uma
peoples.
pessoa que é considerada nativa
Indigenization just means the growing
e entra no
awareness
território.
that we all need to come to understand and value
Todos nós,
the
a gente tem que
worldviews
aprender e
and
valorizar o
perspectives
mundo
and
como
the
ele é.
knowledge of indigenous people.
Feito
And I
diversas
know that
pessoas,
indigenous Native Americans, and I know this is true in
dos
Brazil to some
indígenas
extent,
norte-americanos,
um,
dos indígenas brasileiros,
are often the caretakers of threatened environments. and active in social movements like opposing fossil fuel pipelines and things like that. So there's a great opportunity for modern Western white people to really expand their knowledge of the kind of wisdom that
Existe uma boa
indigenous people can
oportunidade
bring.
em o Oeste,
Traditional
mas
ecological knowledge
se unir, se entender uma
informs
outra,
the,
através de algumas
we
associações,
have a very narrow understanding of knowledge in Western education. It's sort of
tem que
rational,
começar a
scientific.
entender
It's got to be,
a
certain kind of
educação dessa
linear
região
thinking and
ocidental.
knowledge. Whereas traditional ecological knowledge relies on science, its own forms of science, but also
Não
ancestral
só
knowledge
é
and
considerar
wisdom that is
a
passed
ciência
down from
moderna, mas a
generation
gente
to
também
generation
considerar e
about
respeitar
the local plant.
gerações de conhecimento ancestral.
Okay, let's see here. So,
Então,
again, to reiterate, formerly colonized
novamente
people
falando do
may have
complexo de prioridade e
internalized the
superioridade.
messages of the colonizers, and this is called
Antigamente,
mental
as pessoas colonizadoras
colonization.
tinham
Oops. And education plays an
tinham
important role in this process.
internalizado
And I
as
think we know
mensagens
that. We have a
de
history in the United
colonizadores,
States.
né?
There was a
Isso
history
pode
of
ser chamado de colonização mental.
taking
A educação,
children away
ela
from their
inicia
families
um
and away from
importante
their tribes
movimento para esse
and
processo.
putting them in Western schools, often run by missionaries. And they were brutal. Finally, the information is coming to light about the suffering of the children who were in these schools. But the whole idea was to
A
indoctrinate
ideia
young
geral
people
aqui
in the colonizers' culture and rid them of their own cultural backgrounds. And that was really mental colonization through education. Steve Biko is one of my heroes. He was a South African
Biko é
revolutionary, and
considerado
one of his quotes is, "The
revolucionário.
most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." And of course, Paulo Freire in Brazil has
Ele é
helped us
como
to understand
o
this
Paulo
even
Freire no
further.
Brasil.
So post-colonialism, there are still
Comentar
colonies.
aqui sobre o
Don't get me wrong, but between 45 and 1975, most colonies gained their independence and became self-determined.
Entre 1945 e
Not
1975, algumas
everyone is aware of
colônias
now is that
ganharam independência
colonialism has sort of changed its
e
costume.
expulsaram,
It's taken on new forms.
incluindo
So the whole
a sua própria política.
structure of economic imperialism,
Eles reestruturaram a sua
mass
economia,
incarceration, resource extraction,
uma
debt
política de
structuring,
extração de
the
recursos,
hundreds of foreign military bases that the U.S. has all over the world,
incluindo
social
várias bases
media,
militares
pseudo-culture,
internacionais,
foreign aid,
trabalhando a
and
mídia
these
social,
externally imposed models of
a
development and
propaganda, a
austerity and
piscicultura,
dependency are
incluindo as
really the new form
propagandas
of
internacionais,
colonialism.
modelos impostos
So
pelo desenvolvimento e austeridade
post-colonial, but we
e uma
haven't really
governança de
decolonized yet.
independência.
So what is decolonization? And I rely on this. I
Então,
am
o que
not
é a
a person who has
descolonização?
suffered from colonization.
A
I have
descolonização,
relied
ela seria
in my
uma
learning on
processo
the
de
stories
retiração
and narratives
e do
by
desmantelamento
many
colonial
students from all over the world who have
de
experienced
várias
colonization.
esferas, né, de várias
I've read a
formas,
lot, but
incluindo
really the
esconder
experts of
ou
colonization
inconscientemente
are people who
aspectos
have experienced
da própria atitude, dos
the
hábitos, os
victimization of
pensamentos,
it.
a
But
cultura,
we're
as
all
instituições
responsible,
a
I think,
manter o
for
poder colonial e a
unpacking it.
opressão sobre eles.
So it's really a process of dismantling colonialist power in all of its forms. It's a very big task. And the reason why I think
Então,
education is so
um grande
important
trabalho
is
esse
because
de
this includes the hidden or
desmantelar o
unconscious aspects
colonialismo.
that remain in our attitudes, our habits, our thinking, our culture, and our institutions that maintain colonial power and oppression over others. So I would say the work of anti-racism, the work of
Eu posso
repatriation,
usar a palavra aqui de racismo.
all of these are aspects of decolonization.
Esse aspecto é considerado uma descolonização.
But just recognizing, I think, the way that the colonial mentality remains in our
Só da gente
culture
reconhecer a mentalidade colonialista.
So, in Neohumanism,
Tópico no Neohumanismo
what's the actual process of decolonizing?
seria o
Sarkar
processo,
didn't talk very
o
much
processo
about
básico
decolonizing. He
para a
did talk about
descolonização.
the colonial experience in India.
Como é que a gente pode mencionar o colonialismo na
Recognize
Índia?
that the colonial experience had been constructed by the creation of
Como é que é a
inferiority
colônia,
complexes.
né? Foi
But in
construída, né?
Neohumanism, there's this idea that
A ideia
through
do
the
Neohumanismo
process of meditation,
tem uma
service,
ideia
and
sobre
education, we
incluindo a
overcome
meditação, a
the
educação,
impediments that limit our ability to love all creation, animate and
onde a gente
inanimate.
pode amar todas as
There's a
criaturas.
discussion that, first of all, the child is born, it's got an ego, and
Nós-
its circle
Uma
of
discussão
senses is the
acerca
family.
do ego da família, do
And
já
then
sentimento,
geosentiment is territorial
do
attachment. It's
humanismo,
really
do
the way
apego às
that
ideias, né? Do neohumanismo.
We identify with a place, a particular place.
A gente consegue identificar
nation.
lugar particular,
Social sentiment is
específico,
the way that we tend to be attached to a particular race or a particular
onde é o
religion,
sentimento, onde a gente fica apegado a uma
social
específica
group,
raça
or a
ou
social class.
uma classe social.
And going outwards, humanism. In humanism, we had this.
E no humanismo a gente tem
Sorry about that. An attachment to species, and that was very much a part of humanism. Was that the human being
o humanismo
is
é muito
superior
característico
to
do apego,
all the
assim,
rest
né?
of creation, and that gives us the ability to
Somente é uma
dominate
espécie
and
e
control
ignorar o resto
and
da
to
criação
master
das espécies.
the rest of the planet. And of course, that's when it's connected with capitalism and endless growth and resource extraction. We could say that that's kind of what's taken us to the tipping point that we're at now, where all life on Earth is under threat. So the ultimate sort
Do
of sentiment
planeta,
in
toda a
neohumanism
vida é
is this
considerada,
love and
né?
respect for all beings.
Ou seja, no seu aspecto total.
Now I do want to say, because I think in some ways, for example, geosentiment, the attachment to land,
Algumas
is
vezes
really a
o meu
very important
sentimento
concept to many indigenous people. And in fact, the idea that the land itself is a source of wisdom, a source of ancestral stories.
tem a sua
So I
história,
don't want to
a sua
diminish
sabedoria,
the importance of land and place to people. And none
eles
of these
têm,
changes are
reconhecem a
actually
importância
problematic
da terra,
in
do seu
themselves.
povo.
One's social identity, for example,
Uma identidade
can be a
nacional,
source of great
por
empowerment.
exemplo.
I think what Sarkar was telling us, that it's when we get stuck on this identity chain, when we start to feel that our race is superior to all the other ones, or
Então,
that our
é que
religion
uma
is the
raça
only
superior
correct
à
one,
outra,
that the expansive flow of consciousness is blocked.
a relação,
So
a busca
neohumanism teaches
é
us
bloqueada.
that we need to eliminate limiting labels and continue to expand our consciousness
Tem que
into
eliminar
this idea of
alguns
interconnectedness
dados,
and
mas a gente
unity rather than separation and
sobre a
superiority.
civilização do mundo, dos humanos, da
When we
superioridade.
finally remove all these labels that we have affixed to ourselves,
A gente
we find
finalmente
something that
remover
precedes all labels.
a,
And that's really the
a
existential
escravidão,
awareness
essa
that we really are all
Então,
one, that we really are connected with
onde a gente
everything in the
considera
universe.
que todo mundo
So
é
that's
único,
the
é
neo-humanist perspective that I think connects to the
universo,
project of decolonizing our minds and overcoming
projeto de
limiting
descolonização da
sentiments.
mente.
So I actually thought we might take some time. Dada, you can tell me if this is all right, just in some small groups so people can have an opportunity to stop listening to me and talk to themselves for about maybe 15 minutes. Is that
Então, a
okay,
gente
Dada,
vai
to do some small group
separar
breakouts?
um grupo, fazer uma divisão de grupos
Yes,
para uma
okay.
discussão de 15
So I would
minutos.
say maybe in groups of 3, just random groups, take a little bit of time to examine and share a story of your own identity, whether it's around race or
Então, a
social
gente,
class,
quando a gente
gender,
faz divisão de grupos, então cada
sexuality,
pessoa
ability,
vai
but
ter um
tell
tempo
this
de
story
50
in
minutos
terms
para
of
dizer
the
a
power
sua
relations, the
identidade,
hierarchies, and the
falar sua
histories
história da
of
identidade,
colonization and
dar exemplos de
decolonization in your home
identidade,
country.
sua
Now, I
raça
realize this could take
social,
hours
seu
and we only
gênero,
have,
sua sexualidade,
say,
sua habilidade, sua
15
língua,
minutes or 20
os
minutes.
termos de relações de poder, hierarquia,
Dada, you're
história de
muted.
descolonização de seu local.
So, whole group, share. What have we learned? What do we need to do? How does this relate to the next few sessions you're going to have on Africa?
Então, o que nós vamos
If
fazer
you
agora? A
put your
gente vai
question in
compartilhar
the
o
chat, that would probably be very helpful.
que a gente conversou no grupo, né, nas salas divididas, e a gente pode falar no chat.
Do we have a question in the chat or a comment from the large groups?
Not yet.
Nós ainda não temos perguntas no chat, algum comentário.
Maybe just some feedback from different groups, what they talked about, what seems important.
Ou algum comentário, né? Um retorno do que a gente comentou durante a nossa reunião. Pode escrever aqui no chat.
You can open your mic and say or just write in the chat.
Vocês podem colocar, abrir o microfone, falar ou escrever no chat.
Kathleen, can you read the chat? Do you want me to read for you?
Yes. Please read.
So,
Então, a gente aprendeu que ele,
we have learned that he has
sobre
allowed
a
colonization
colonização,
so
que a
that
gente
we
tem que
learn to
aprender.
struggle and achieve success. And then Guruvati says, I believe that decolonization
Entendi
needs
que a
to take place
descolonização
with the
precisa
colonizer and the colonized, because the superiority
prover
inferiority
a
complex is
colonização e
very
não
much alive.
e a superioridade e inferioridade
So maybe one of you would
ainda.
like to expand on this a bit? Dada, Gyanananda, you want to unmute and start us off?
No grupo francês, que a descolonização ainda não iniciou ainda.
Cannot hear you, Dada.
I will stop the translation. Please, 1 minute.
So, Karunish, my French is very, 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 very poor, but you're asking what factors favor decolonization? Delegate Ananda, you are muted.
I can't update him the interpretation, so I can take him from his room now. He's stuck there.
Oh.
I will try.
Shiva Priya, take out of my room.
I'm trying, but I will end with all of them if I end with you.
But he's on our big screen.
O Nada tá tentando retornar ao grupo, mas ele tá preso lá.
I'll try to end and then I put the others again. Okay.
You should remove all of them.
Yes, I think so. I think we should come in the collective now and just share in the collective. It's much better for the moment. We can benefit more. Donc, j'étais en train de dire, on partage ici dans le collectif là. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez mettre dans le chat en français et je vais les traduire en anglais pour le professeur. Donc, Karunesh was asking, what are the factors to facilitate the process of decolonization? He confused a little bit colonization and decolonization. He asked in the past, but actually he wants to understand how to move ahead with decolonization.
Is anybody who is familiar with France have an answer for that?
S'il y a quelqu'un qui est familier avec le français, peut répondre cela. Gurvati ou Narada, vous pouvez répondre, ou même Ada qui parlait là il y a un peu de temps là.
Moi, si j'ai bien compris la question,
If I understood well the question, I think.
En fait, il y a bon espoir que les choses avancent là, parce que la jeunesse comprend aujourd'hui que il faut cette jeunesse aujourd'hui avec les nouvelles technologies, etc., sont au courant de tout ce qui se passe dans le monde et comprennent bien qu'ils ne veulent plus accepter d'être soumis. Et ils font la pression sur nos dirigeants aujourd'hui.
Excellent. Si tu peux parler ça aussi en anglais, là, pour la professeure de côté aussi.
Vas-y. Ce serait mieux que tu...
Okay, donc, what he said that from his point of view, the movement is on, that the youth is not anymore accepting the process of colonization. They are sharing a lot of informations, and certainly we have more scope for change. So, si tu veux parler alors très lentement là pour que je te traduise alors. Hein.
Ok, d'accord. Donc les dirigeants aujourd'hui, ils sont sous pression entre le colonisateur qui leur impose ce qu'ils souhaitent et la jeunesse qui dit non à la colonisation ou au néocolonialisme.
Donc he's saying that the leaders in Africa, for example, are under pressure from the youth who don't want any more decolonization, but themselves are obedient to the colonizer. So this dynamics is taking place now in many parts of the world.
Donc, on a vu le cas de la Libye où effectivement l'OTAN ou l'Occident a décidé de tuer Kadhafi par l'autorisation quelque part de l'OUA qui avait accepté à l'époque.
And we've seen that, for example, in the case of Libya, where the NATO took on itself to kill Gaddafi using a breach in the mandate that they got from the UN.
Donc, aujourd'hui, les Africains se sont rendus compte que pour le Niger, parce qu'on connaît les conséquences de ce qui s'est passé à la Libye, tous les djihadistes sont descendus en Afrique, le Mali, le Burkina, le Niger ont des problèmes à cause de cela.
And at this moment, most African youth And the Africans are not accepting the case of Niger, that there is an intervention, a military intervention in Niger, because from Libya, many jihadists came from Libya and to all the countries of the Sahel and created havoc and still are creating the havoc.
Donc, ce qui est important, c'est la jeunesse, c'est l'avenir. Donc, si la jeunesse comprend qu'elle doit prendre son avenir en main, moi, je ne m'inquiète plus.
So he's saying that what is important now is the youth. That if the youth understand very well what is going on now, and the proper education is imparted and strengthening, he will not be worried about the future. He feels that the future is positive.
Parce que les leaders seront obligés d'écouter la jeunesse, parce que un adulte, il est pris par son salaire, par autre chose, mais la jeunesse insouciante et est prête à aller jusqu'au bout pour son idéal.
Comment est-ce que tu peux répéter une fois
J'ai dit, par exemple, les adultes, ils ne peuvent pas se battre comme il faut parce qu'ils sont coincés, il leur faut le salaire pour pouvoir nourrir leur famille, etc. Alors que la jeunesse, elle est insouciante de ce côté-là, elle va se battre pour son idéal jusqu'au bout.
Donc, the old ones are not able to fight against this situation because they are mostly involved with maintenance of the families and different type of issues. But the youth is determined not to live in as inferior as colonized. So it is the youth that is the key.
Right. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the chat is the issue of reparations is probably one of the key issues of our time and will probably prove to be one of the most difficult as well, as people get very protective of what they have and where they live.
Yes, it is. Here in South America, in Brazil, yesterday when I was on my bus from São Paulo to the interior of São Paulo, I just learned that in the Northeast, they killed one lady, they shot one lady, 12 bullets in her body because she fights for the right of the Black people there. And her religion is different from the official religion. She's Afro-descendant, so she was killed because of that. So, and her son was killed 2-3 months back.
Right.
And she was talking to somebody whose daughter was killed in that land. Now she's also killed. And all these descendants from the slavery in Brazil, at least I can say, from the African side, they were not given any land. They were not given anything. Simply they were asked to get out of the farms. And that's how, so that reparation, yes, has to be thought about. And the respect of, they believe they cannot kill people like this just because of their religion. Like we are in the Middle East back, in the Middle Age.
Right. So Aradana, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, in the chat said, aren't we all supposed to learn English so we can communicate? And I know that Sarkar actually supported the idea of a lingua franca. I suppose right now it would probably be English. Somebody speculate in the future it may be Sanskrit. But it also speaks, I think, to the importance of including the study of multiple languages in neo-humanist schools. So people can, really speak in many, many tongues. So it's complicated. We're trying to build a global movement and we don't all understand each other. So
yes,
that's very hard to do.
Elle dit qu'au même moment que nous voulons construire un mouvement universel et global, nous avons des difficultés de nous comprendre. Et elle mentionne donc que Sarkar aussi a appuyé l'idée d'une langue lingua franca, une langue universelle, pas une langue universelle, mais une langue de communication universelle comme l'anglais. Mais elle ajoute le fait que dans nos éducations, nous pourrions penser à des multilangues, des éducations dans beaucoup de langues pour que nous puissions nous communiquer à côté de la langue locale, quoi.
I see a question here. Is the ideological struggle or the power struggle more significant in decolonization? Wow, what a great question. Are they separate? I guess would be my first question. Can you separate ideology and power?
Pouvons-nous séparer l'idéologie et le pouvoir? Ça, c'est la question qu'elle donne. Si c'est la lutte idéologique ou lutte de pouvoir, c'est ça la question qui est mise. Et donc, elle demande s'il y a moyen de séparer l'idéologie et le pouvoir.
I think there are some very big questions around strategy. You know, the dominant groups in the world control military, surveillance, police. And so there's a lot of conversation among non-dominant groups to what extent self-defense is important. And I think those are very difficult questions. You know, can there be a non-violent revolution? You know, and what are the tools of revolutionary activity if, you know, we're not talking about guns and bombs? How do you create a nonviolent revolution? The youth are very idealistic.
I don't know if, yeah, I guess I can be heard. You know, around the world, it's manifested in places in Europe like Austria and also in the U.S. with Trumpism and even in South American places. This idea of Trumpism is more general. It's about the right believing that through the courts, and it's even happening in Israel, different are through in the U.S. through gerrymandering and whatnot, the acquisition of power can overcome ideological progress. And they have been successful. They have turned back what people perceived as certain ideological forward movement in the ideological debate by taking power back in different ways. And so I think there is a conscious movement on the part of the right-wing entities around the world that taking power will significantly delay this ideological transformation that we thought was happening. And so I do think this ignoring of power, sometimes in lieu of ideological progress, can lead to steps backward. We have to recognize that certain people are positioning themselves through different ways of overcoming democratic freedoms by taking power in very subtle ways. I think in the U.S. that's played out, and it's played out in other places. And so that's why I asked that question.
I think from what we listened from Kathleen, we can see that though they had the power, the military power, they had all the powers, but they made sure to occupy education, to use instrumentalized education to create a mindset of colonize and to facilitate even the process of neo-colonization, along with that mindset, the religions also are used in that processes. So it seems that ideology has more strength over power, over military. So education, I believe, is the way. Somebody's asking me to translate in French. The discussion here is about which one is important, power or ideology.
French, not
Hello, Guruvati?
You are speaking English, you are not translating into English.
Yeah, I'm not accustomed to doing that, so think. Donc, la question ici en discussion est qu'est-ce qui est plus important? C'est l'idéologie ou le pouvoir? Et dans la présentation de Japa, et Kathleen aussi a posé cette question en fait, il démontre que ceux-là qui ont le pouvoir, que ceux-là qui ont l'idéologie, d'une certaine manière, ont tendance à aussi avoir le pouvoir. Donc, quand l'idéologie avance avec le contrôle du pouvoir, donc comme le contrôle de l'éducation, le contrôle des religions, donc cette idéologie a tendance à avoir une précédence sur le pouvoir, quoi. C'est ça, c'est que je peux résumer. Oui. Si Guruvati veut ajouter quelque chose là, quand je traduis là, tu es la bienvenue. Hein?
Can I say something? Hello, I don't know now.
Yes, we can listen to you, Dada.
Okay.
Yes, we can listen to you.
Regarding this question that Catherine mentioned about the violence, if a revolution can be violent, and I think, I don't know exactly where, but somewhere I think Sarkar mentioned in somewhere that this depends, the key is education, as I say. When most of the population have the percentage, the higher the percentage of the population have a consciousness and educated, the less blood will be in the transformation, in the revolution. When there is people are less educated, the transformation, there is a violent revolution. But it can be a possible a cultural revolution with a minimal violence when the most of the population have a higher consciousness. This is the against violence. But
donc, ce qu'Amitabha dit là est que plus l'éducation est dans la grande partie de la population, moins de chances nous avons de violence dans un changement. Dans un changement culturel basé sur l'éducation, il est possible, mais ça dépendra de l'étendue de gens éduqués dans cette communauté.
That looks like there's another question here from Brazil. What do and we might end on this because I think that's a very good point about the importance of education and spirituality. What is the biggest challenge of a neo-humanist and liberating education in neo-colonized countries? Anybody like to address that question? Japa says people in power colonize by controlling education.
Yes. In fact, now itself, we can see education, which is just a material education, eliminate the psychic and spiritual aspects of education from the curriculum.
Yeah, I think another element of this is not only not only the control of education, but the breakdown in community. One of P.R. Sarkar's, one of the things that we know that is part of this work is to create these communities. And I think the only way to take back the education is through the education being seated in communities. Once you can create new communities, and within those communities, you can educate. But one of the things that the powers to be do is break down community also, and in breaking down community, then become those who provide education. So the reclaiming of community of different times, the intersectional communities, which you mentioned earlier, I think is the only way that we'll be able to achieve this education, this mission of education. Otherwise, the powers to be are in control of the education.
Right.
And so therefore you aren't going to be successful, I believe.
And Amar has a very good point in the chat. Germany was the most highly educated country probably in Western education. And look what happened there. So I think you're right, Amar. I wouldn't say spiritual and educational are binaries, but we need to have a spiritually based education. So I want to encourage all of you to get more familiar with our neo-humanist education program. Donna is certainly familiar with our program. I think that's what we're trying to accomplish, is to really create a very unique form of education that is grounded in spirituality, but that's also critical, critical pedagogy, and decolonizing at the same time. So hopefully we'll have a book out in the next couple of months. Invite you all to read it and get involved with your local neo-humanist education group. So I think we can probably close now. We're at an hour and a half.
I want to translate what you just said a while ago. So what Kathleen is telling is that Amar put
You're
in
in English.
Yes, I am. I had to change the tune. Donc, ce Kathleen a dit est que Amar a mis dans le texte, on disait là que l'éducation est très importante pour une révolution pacifique. Et en même temps, on disait aussi que autant l'éducation est étendue, beaucoup plus de chances nous aurons une révolution beaucoup plus harmonieuse. Mais alors, Amar vient, il a intervenu, il dit, mais en Europe, là, nous avons l'Allemagne qui avait une très bonne éducation. C'était l'un des pays les mieux éduqués en Europe. Mais en même temps, nous voyons ce qui est là aujourd'hui. Et donc, il dit que nous devons avoir une éducation spirituelle. Alors, Kathleen entre dans le dialogue. Il dit que nous ne devons pas faire une contradiction entre la spiritualité et l'éducation. Qu'au contraire, nous devons parler d'une éducation basée sur la spiritualité, une éducation néohumaniste. Et donc, il dit que vous encourage à entrer en contact avec le système d'éducation néohumaniste que nous avons aujourd'hui. Nous avons un collège à Asheville qui donne des cours d'éducation néohumaniste, où Kathleen, en fait, est la directrice académique, et qui bientôt, peut-être dans 3-4 mois, nous aurons un livre sur l'éducation néohumaniste qui, en même temps, basé sur la spiritualité, mais aussi parle de la décolonisation, aussi parle de pensée critique. Donc, en fait, quand on va développer les deux côtés dans la vision même néohumaniste. Yes, I finished.
So we're at an end, right?
Thank you very much. It's been very, very informative.
Thank you all.
Namaskar.
Stay in touch.
Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar.
Yes,
Thank you.
can they send us the links to get in touch with you?
They want to have the contact of the school,
What is the name of the book that's coming out?
The name at this point is Neo-Humanist Education, Theory and Practice for the Anthropocene.
Éducation néohumaniste, la théorie et la pratique pour l'ère anthropocène. Ça, c'est le titre du livre que Kathleen est en train d'écrire, en fait.
I think Donna's the only person here who's read most of it.
Thank you. But still, I need to read more to grasp it and make good use of it. I can say that neo-humanist education, as we are accustomed to see it in our schools, has got a big leap at this moment with this College of Asheville, where it's brought to a level very, very high. And I would encourage everyone who is interested in changing the world really to get a grasp of it. In fact, there is a course that will be started soon. So you all are invited to join that course. It is really worth. So je voudrais dire donc l'éducation néohumaniste que nous connaissons jusque-là a pris un saut galopant. avec l'introduction du collège Neohumanisme d'Asheville et qu'il y a en fait, ils vont commencer des classes une fois de plus de 2 ans. Et ces cours-là vont commencer dans peu de temps, dans 2 semaines ou 3 semaines, je ne sais pas. Et si vous vous intéressez, c'est une très bonne opportunité. Ceux-là qui pensent à travailler pour la libération de l'humanité, c'est une très grande opportunité de prendre ce cours-là.
Except it
I
is
want
in
to-
English.
I want
Yeah.
to ask something. Are you aware of Beyond Materialism, Spirituality for the 21st Century? Do you know that book by Amal Jacobson? Did you hear me, somebody?
Yes.
Do you want to write the title in the chat?
I don't
She
know
was
what's
telling-
going on with my title, my
Oh.
chat. It's Beyond Materialism,
Right.
Spirituality for the 21st Century by Amal Jacobson.
Right. It's a new book
you-
out.
Yeah.
Beyond Materialism. Good. I look forward to reading that.
She
So-
said it's written by Amal. Amal is
Right.
Arun. Amal is Arun?
Arun's son.
Okay, Arun's son. Okay.
All right,
Thanks
everyone.
a lot. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you. And this Samaj Amandla is very grateful for you having taken time to come to share your few minutes. And we
Maybe-
hope that you'll continue. You'll continue.
Maybe I'll pop in
getting
on
your-
some of your classes. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.